Oh.
We're live now, and we're going to start right now. Welcome to Seattle Neighborhood Crier. You can join our chat group during our live broadcast, and our live broadcast is every Tuesday at 7 p.m. And you can get to our chat group via the homepage at seattleneighborhoodcrier.org. And last week we had, which was our first show, we had Debbie Getz from the Seattle Department of Emergency Management, and we talked about the Seattle Department of Emergency Management and how to get a SNAP group started. And we got, let's see, they have classes, SNAP classes, such as light search and rescue, earthquake home refit, fire extinguisher 101, prepare your pet for disaster, store emergency water, drinking water, and they also have CERT classes once a year. And you can look for these classes at seattle.gov/emergency/events, or just Google Seattle SNAP and you'll get to the SNAP homepage. And today's show is about a group who started a SNAP group in their neighborhood, and it's Elija Driscol and Jeannette Chen. And hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
And we're going to start off. How did you guys start off How did you get started in doing your SNAP group? Elija?
Well, actually, I have a pretty specific memory of last summer. We lived on this block for about 4 or 5 years, I think. And I was hanging out last summer with my daughter, who was 1 year old at the time, so she couldn't walk, but she was crawling. And so we were sitting out on a blanket on a nice summer day, and she was crawling around. And as is often the case when I'm with her, people tend to approach us because she's really cute. And so one of my neighbors, Marlene, came up to us, and she was just kind of chatting us up, and then asked me, "Hey, would you mind if I got your contact information? I'm kind of trying to put together a contact list for the block." And I said, "Yeah, that would be great. Actually, I'd love to know, who my neighbors are and how to contact them if I ever needed to for any reason." And so once Marlene sort of broke the ice and got everyone on our block, just kind of put the list together, I think she or Jeannette was maybe one of the first people that sent out something that they had got a notification from Seattle Emergency Management about these SNAP classes and asked if anyone else was interested in that. And 3 or 4 of us, I think, had replied pretty immediately that we'd already been thinking about that stuff for ourselves. I had actually taken a free class at the Finney Neighborhood Association that was given by a representative from the Red Cross on how to build an emergency plan and an emergency kit for your family. But, I hadn't actually done anything since the class, and so I was kind of excited that some of the neighbors were interested in doing it too. And then that just sort of started it off, where about 3 or 4 of us started meeting with each other and talking about getting an official SNAP group started on the block, and finding out what other things people wanted to know about with regard to being prepared. What about you, Jeannette? What do you remember from us kind of starting out?
I think Marlene should have been on this program, asking folks at our block parties, or as soon as she moved in, she was trying to get people's contact information so that we could all be in touch via email and such. And then I guess after she talked with you, Elija, she sent out several emails just alerting the neighborhood to these free classes that were happening, and on a whim, I went to one at the library and met Debbie Getz, and then we started meeting, on our own to figure out what we could do for our block, how we could build community, as well as be prepared for an emergency. So,
what was the first class that you took from her? Was it the basic intro to SNAP?
I took the utilities class, but she didn't have the utility panel. Her fire department guy didn't show up that day, but we watched a lot of different videos that were on the little snippet videos that do things, and she had other people in the class that either had apartment buildings that they were trying to get prepared for emergencies, and I realized that there's this interesting underbelly of emergency preparedness in Seattle.
There's a community for sure, people who talk about this stuff. I think that initially it was about 4 of us, and as we've kind of had more little events, a few more neighbors have kind of jumped in on wanting to help us plan stuff. And we actually, again, Marlene was the one that really kind of had the idea for this, was to kind of get everyone together last fall around Thanksgiving for a movable feast, or something that other people might know of as a progressive dinner, where you basically go from house to house. Everyone brings their own cup, and you kind of fill it up with your beverage of choice. But there's a different course of a meal served at like we did 4 different houses. But like appetizers at one place, then salad and soup, which is actually at Marlene's place, an entree somewhere else, and then kind of ended it with dessert. And because we had been talking about wanting to kind of foster this sense of community on our block, we decided that this event would be a great social opportunity to get to know people, but also present to them this idea that we had about getting organized for both emergency preparedness and sort of like security or block watch type activity, which I think a lot of people feel that those two things really go hand in hand, because it comes down to the same thing, which is just getting to know your neighbors and being, kind of connected on just even a daily basis, not just when something terrible happens. And that movable feast was, I think, a huge success. I mean, we had a lot of attendance, but people had a really good time, and we were able to use the course of the meal that we did at each house as an opportunity to present one topic, like creating a snap group or doing a block watch. And I think it was great that we started off with something that was really social, because it's not just all doom and gloom or kind of being a survivalist, but really just emphasizing that it's about living in a nice place and getting to know the people around you.
How many people do you two have in your? Oh, I think the audience needs to know that you guys are neighbors and you guys are on the same.
Yeah, we live on a relatively small block of 25 houses. We had about 35 people come to the Progressive Feast, and everybody had a really good time, and it was a great way to kick things off. And we heard from a lot of people that they were glad that we were putting this together, that they'd often thought about putting emergency kits together, but they just didn't have the energy or maybe all the information, or it just felt too overwhelming to think about it, or they just wanted to stick their head in the sand and I'll worry about that tomorrow, or I'll worry about it when an emergency comes. And I frankly had that attitude also, but with 2 kids and a husband that works a lot, I just felt like I needed to be a little more prepared.
So how much time would you guys say? Oh, yeah, you're fading in out. You were fading out there a little bit, Jeannette. Next question. Did you guys participate in the drill this last Saturday?
Yeah, we had a small group that we advertised through our email, and we combined it with another social event, which was our disaster movie night, which we could talk about later. But yeah, we had a small cohort trudge up to Loyal Heights Community Center to see what was going on there. And I had myself and my boys, we all picked out the little scenarios out of the jar, and it was really helpful because the people that were running the drill wanted the practice also because these were unique situations. And while they were discussing, what we should do with donated goggles or gray water, uh, so what they would do in a disaster. So I thought in that regard it was pretty helpful for them, and my boys enjoyed being a part of it.
And I think we should highlight what the disaster drill was. Every year it's different.
Oh, this year it was Mount Rainier was exploding, and so
I
there was
think
volcanic ash.
non-specific volcano.
Oh, sorry, unspecific. So there was a lot of ash all over the place, and different scenarios were coming up about equipment that was available or donated, or where you would find it, or what you had to do. And it was interesting because the other thing I think a few people found out was that the hub is not some place you go for help. They're not going to hand you, the trash bags that you use for a toilet. They're going to tell you where to go and get the. That was one of my scenarios that I pointed out, but I pulled out. But they're just a pass-through for information, basically, and I thought that was interesting to know. So you went there straight for, okay, I need help, this is what I need, and they would help you. That's not how it worked.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was helpful to see physically how they set up a station with the intent of both, being in communication with the city, because they're helping to kind of assess levels of impact from a disaster and feed that information up the food chain to emergency management and the mayor's office, so they can essentially distribute resources, whether it's assistance that they're getting from FEMA or local fire and police or rescue. I mean, if something was to happen that would significantly disrupt transportation through the city or utilities or whatever, they have to figure out which areas need the most help immediately. And so I think the hubs are really significant that we actually have a city with a network of that type here, where citizens who are volunteers are willing to help feed that kind of information to the people who manage the resources, and also be a place where the rest of us can go to offer help if we are in a good enough position ourselves to be able to extend ourselves to others, or to ask for what we need, either on behalf of ourselves or our neighbors. And there was boards where people could pin up. They actually had a little form that you could fill out, basically just describing whatever it is that you're going through, and they included things like lost or found or have or need, or just a message that you need to post for someone if you're trying to get in touch with them. So I think that it's for me at least, it was a really unique thing to see. I've never seen a city kind of activate in that way, and I hope that as these drills continue, that more and more people will be able to show up at them, because, like Jeannette said, I think that the people running them need all the practice they can get, because when things actually happen in an emergency, it's going to be a lot more kind of frantic.
How is your group preparing for supplies? Are they doing it as a group, or are you guys all doing it individually?
I think a little of both. We all have some stuff that we've started to gather, but we've also been considering things like bulk buying. Something that's kind of struck me as I've seen footage of various emergencies, whether it's like Katrina or tsunamis and things, earthquakes in Japan and stuff, is a lot of tarps. That just seems to be a common thread. Especially, I can see if something happened here in the Northwest in any time, say between November and April, there's a good chance that we're going to, if you're around damaged structures or anything like that, we're going to need a way to keep wind and water off of ourselves. And so that's one of those things we're looking at, like, well, where can we buy like a case of tarps and hand out 2 or 4 tarps or whatever to each household at kind of a discounted price. So I think we're still evaluating that, and probably anxious to move beyond the point of evaluating and just actually go start buying some of these things. But at the same time, Jeannette has a a barrel that she's got, and she started to fill it up with stuff. And one of our other neighbors has kind of developed this system for himself with a kind of a collapsible dolly and some plastic tubs that fit on the dolly so that it can kind of be packed up and used as an evacuation kit if needed.
We did the initial class, and not the utilities class, but the initial SNAP class in our neighborhood that was pretty well attended also. We had almost 20 people there. And they gave just a few quick things that you could do to be more prepared, including, put a pair of sturdy shoes under your bed, which, I did that night because it was easy and a quick thing to do. And again, our neighbors were just very happy to be learning about some easy, simple techniques that they could do. We also took a vote on some of the things that they would like to see in the future, which would be a first aid class, and now we see that the city is holding a free disaster first aid class that is interesting to us, and we're hoping to get it in our neighborhood. I mean, we've got a captive audience, so we're hoping we can get these resources, to work for our neighborhood as well.
It's important to point out that the reason why everybody's asking you to put your shoes under your bed is because the #1 injury in San Francisco during the earthquake was the glass that broke and people running out and cutting their feet. So,
thank you. I
lesson
left that
learned.
out.
Well, that's okay. And
Jeannette mentioned the utility class that she took at the library. Marlene and I actually both took that class as well a month or two later, and we all thought that was just a really great class, well organized information and important stuff for people to know. And so we worked with Debbie to organize one of those classes, because she actually has it kind of all laid out, the slideshow and the props and everything. And we arranged for a space that's actually on our block that was able to hold about 15 or 20 people. So she came out to our neighborhood and did that class, and it was like on a Sunday morning, so we actually bought a bunch of like bagels and coffee and stuff like that. So we're, again, just trying to make it a social event at the same time that we're learning something. But then what I think was really significant is we planned for that 1 hour class, and then for 1 hour after that we had bought a bunch of the utility shutoff wrenches and some zip ties and some 8-hour light sticks, which is a non-combustible source of illumination, which is important if you're going to check your gas and you're afraid it might be leaking. You don't want to light a match or something like that, and maybe you can't find a flashlight. So we actually went around and tied on a utility shutoff wrench with one of those light sticks to everyone's gas meter, everyone that has gas. So not only did we learn something at the class, but we then immediately followed it up with an extension so that everyone on the block is automatically that much more prepared. And we kind of have that peace of mind of knowing that, like, okay, if any of us, smells gas coming from someone's house or hears the hissing, we don't have to go look for a tool. We can just walk right up to their house. We know that wrench is there, and we can prevent something possibly, disastrous from happening. And then we also walked around with a map that day and marked out where all those utilities are. So we've got an aerial photograph that we got from the city of Seattle has a map counter that will print a map for you, whatever size you want. So we literally told them we wanted it between this block and this block. And they printed out a map and an aerial photograph for us. So we added the utility locations onto that map so that we have that as a reference.
And why this class is important is that you also learn on there that if you don't smell the gas or hear it going,
don't
shut it off, because it's going to take 3 weeks, up to 3 weeks or more, to get it back on. So you want to make sure that gas is leaking before you start. And depending on the size of an earthquake or disaster, and smelling it, you're going to really know if that needs to happen.
Sure. If you go out and you see your little meters like spinning, wildly out of control, then you know that it's leaking out there. But you're right. That was a key takeaway from the class is You can turn on your water and turn off your water anytime you want. You can shut down your electrical panel and turn it back on yourself. But gas, you have to wait for the utility company to come back out. It's just not a good idea to turn it on yourself after it's been shut off. So. But I think that working with Debbie has been really great because, like I said, it's not just about getting the information, but then trying to do some sort of an extension with our neighbors so that we're actually being more prepared every time we, take a class.
And SNAP encourages people to get people together, and they'll bring someone out to you to do the initial SNAP.
Absolutely.
Neighborhood
She's very enthusiastic
review.
about that.
And they've got tons of information. I mean, pre-printed sheets that give you kind of an example of what household items could be used in a disaster. I think one of the things that Debbie's really good at getting people to think about is like sort of disaster psychology. So, for example, a T-shirt. It's not necessarily just a shirt, but I mean, obviously, it could be like you can tear it up and use it as a bandage. You could throw it over top of a bucket and use it to filter cloudy water, and obviously that's not going to filter out like contaminants, but it will filter out like if it's got like sediment in it or something like that. So a lot of the information that Office of Emergency Management hands out really gets you thinking about, you're going to have to be creative in a disaster.
And if you email snap@seattle.gov, you can request Debbie or someone else to come out and do the initial SNAP group review.
Yeah, it's a neighborhood like in your living room type of thing. They want to get out there and get close and get you together with your neighbors to start that conversation. And they don't care, honestly, if it's 2 people or 20 people. They just want people to get started, because once you do, it's a lot easier to keep it going and to invite other people into something that you're already doing. So I wouldn't let anybody stop themselves from taking the first step just because they don't think they have enough participation or anything like that.
In her mind, the idea that if it's just you and your neighbor, that's enough people to have a SNAP group, which is pretty nice to hear, because then it's not overwhelming. It's not like you have to think about, I have to get my whole neighborhood organized and involved, because
it's a step-by-step process.
Yeah.
Start with 2 and then go on.
Yeah, because you just have to understand from the get-go, or just know that a certain amount of people are going to get involved. And the more we meet, the more we learn about other people's skills and what they bring to the table and what equipment they have. I mean, we know we have at least 3 engineers on the block, so that's good, and a nurse, which is also handy. And we have a lot of plans for what we want to do in the future. So every time we put something out there, we get something back from our neighborhood.
That was actually a really great thing that we did at the initial SNAP meeting too. That was another one where we did like a 1-hour class, the intro SNAP thing, and then we stuck around for a second hour to have dessert and be social, but also talk about how we wanted to organize ourselves as a block. And we played this little game where it's kind of a variation on a game I've done with other groups where everyone gets an index card and you write down one true thing about yourself, one false thing about yourself. But we added to that one skill that you have or resource that could be of use to the community in a disaster, and one thing that you would like to learn about being prepared. And so then we kind of shuffled all the cards and we read them off, and people had to try to guess, who was who. But through that process, not only did we learn a little bit more about, our neighbors, but we were able to pull out those common threads, like, wow, a lot of people expressed an interest in learning about first aid, or boy, one of my things was I have a chainsaw, but I haven't used a chainsaw in a very, very long time, and if trees fall down, I'd love to be able to help, cut them off of someone's house or whatever, but I'm a little bit afraid of using it. I'd love for someone to teach me how to use it. And so one of my neighbors said, I can totally do that. And so even on that very simple level, being connected to someone else that I might not have approached about that, something good that came out of that meeting.
Do you have a block watch tied in with your Snap group?
It's not formal, but yeah, we do look out for each other, and we've got the email system set up so that people can contact each other if something's going on. But that's on our list of things to do.
What other things are on your list as a group?
We'd like to have another first aid. We'd like to have a first aid class that is enhanced and has certification in it. We'd like to do our own simulation on the block. The nurse that I was referring to earlier does simulations in hospitals, and she's excited to help possibly put one together for our block. Elijah, what are some of the other things that we would like to keep doing these progressive feasts every year, and of course our annual block party is a big hit. A nice time for people to come together. We'll probably, give people an update on what we are thinking about for the coming year. We are also been working on applying for one of the grants through the city for emergency preparedness through the
neighborhood matching
fund grants and so we actually have a lot of things that we have going on at once. We meet every other week for an hour or so to keep plugging forward and plugging away at our to-do list.
Oh, every other week. That's pretty impressive.
I think we, with trying to plan an event, even like 2 or 3 months out in advance, you kind of realize, wow, if we only meet once a month, we're only going to see each other twice between now and when that happens. So, and it's only like an hour and a half, and it's usually pretty fun at the same time. We just kind of sit around and giggle as we're trying to come up with good ideas. So.
And you're in the neighborhood, so it's a lot easier that way too.
We're all walking to one another's houses, so.
Very nice.
Yeah, I think Jeannette and I were talking on Saturday at that hub simulation about trying to kind of calendar out like a kind of this arc for like a year's worth of, almost like you can almost see it as like annual. I mean, the block block parties are usually in like August. Mm-hmm. Doing that movable feast felt like a really good thing to do, like in November, like around Thanksgiving, when people are starting to think about, getting together around food and friends and all that. And so, maybe we kind of start a little bit of an annual calendar for our block. And it's not always about emergency preparedness or security, but there's always that thread going through it that we're kind of helping each other out. I think, just even thinking now as we're talking out loud, but I'd love to see like an organized garage sale in Ballard, the way that some of the other neighborhoods have it, because I never seem to have a garage sale, and I've got a lot of stuff to get rid of. So maybe everyone else around us would like to do that too.
That'd be great. Capitol Hill has a great one every year.
Yeah, I never find out about those things until after they've happened. But
Jeannette, you're writing a grant then for the.
Yeah, Marlene and I are trying to put together a grant for the various activities that we have planned for our block. We kind of go back and forth between doing the small and simple grant or the larger $25,000 grant. It's up to $25,000, but and the city also holds an informational meeting about the grant and what's eligible. They help you break down the various categories that you have to have, the criteria that you have to meet. They walk you through a lot of the process. They introduce you to some of the project managers that work on the grants, and it's a nice process because you can tell that the city really wants to help fund these grants. It's not like you're not getting a lot of no's. You're getting, yes, we can help you with that information. Yes, we can put you to the person that could answer that question. Yes, did you talk to this office yet? So, we're encouraged about it. It's, everybody's busy, and so it seems a little bit daunting. And also, I feel like we have to be clear on what we want to do. Do we want to do it piecemeal, or do we want to have like, one big, year-long plan
project.
to unroll the emergency preparedness and community building for our block, and then let it blossom from there.
These are not necessarily all just emergency preparedness things, though. The grants, I mean, they issue these grants to citizens all over the city to do all kinds of projects, right?
Yes. Yes, they do. They do it for improvements, parks, uh, all kinds of. I mean, block parties. There's all kind. As long as there's a community element to it, that and something that the city would like to fund, and it meets the criteria, and all the offices that a traffic circle, painting a faux traffic circle in the middle of your block. A lot of different things are funded through those grants. It's worth checking into.
So, what was some of the frustrations in starting your SNAP group?
I don't know, frustration, anticipation, I think, and wonder. We are planning this party. Our initial kickoff was this progressive dinner, and we hemmed and hawed and went back and forth about when we were going to do it, who would come, would they at each place. We were getting nervous about it, but it turned out to be just a really lovely event with the neighborhood coming together. So I guess the frustration is not knowing how interested people are. They're all glad we're doing it, but it's not like, they're all glad we're doing it, but somehow it ends there, so that's a little frustrating.
I mean, honestly, Jeannette, I think we got lucky because everyone has been really positive, and I think that from talking to other people that we've met sort of at that, like the peer-to-peer summit that we went to last October, the common thread that people pulled out in talking about their groups, whether it was Snap or Blockwatch or whatever, was participation. They just really wanted to be able to get like more people to participate. And I just think we got really lucky that we have a lot of great neighbors that wanted to be a part of it, and were really encouraging from the beginning. So, but I can see where that would be a really tough thing for people that are interested in starting this thing off, but no one else really cares, or no one else really knows what it is, or they're just too busy because they have family and work and school and kids and all kinds of stuff. So, regardless, I think that's always going to be an issue. That we're all busy, and we all have a lot of other stuff going on, and so it's frustrating to sometimes, at least right now for me, I wish that I had personally made more progress on getting myself and my family prepared. I know that I'm not quite where I wanted to be, but I'm also a little bit relaxed about it because I know that I'm working slowly with my neighbors to get this stuff done, and it will get done eventually. And worst case scenario, if a disaster happened, tomorrow, I'm in a better spot than I was a year ago just because of that connectedness.
And like you mentioned earlier, it just takes two people to get started.
Yeah.
And neighborhoods have like park openings and grand openings and all sorts of neighborhood get-togethers, and if you have a table of just two people to have all the SNAP material out there, that the SNAP Seattle Emergency Department of Emergency Management, the Office of Emergency Management will have to give you to man a table, that would be another step in getting more people prepared in your neighborhood.
Yeah, that's true. It's maybe something we should think about when there's more events here, like here in Ballard or whatever, to be able to put ourselves out there. Actually, one of the things that I've thought a lot about too is it's not so much frustrating as it is surprising in a way that there isn't sort of a larger networked organization of SNAP groups. Like the way it kind of happens is OEM will send out a trainer to your block, and they'll talk to you about this stuff. They'll kind of give you everything that they can to get you up and running, but then it's really up to you to kind of take it from there and develop it into whatever it is you want. But I would love to be kind of connected to the other SNAP leaders, at least in Ballard, if not kind of larger Seattle thing, and see maybe a couple of meetings per year where people can get together and just kind of have this kind of a conversation about what are you guys doing, which problems have you been trying to solve, what have you been successful with, what do you need help with, what are your frustrations, and just kind of use that shared experience to help us all move it forward. So that's actually a personal goal for me within the next year, is to try to find out more about some of the other groups and reach out beyond our own group to get in touch with the rest of the SNAP groups in Ballard.
That would be good, even citywide.
Yeah, I know that, like, for example, West Seattle is actually really, really good about this. They've been working together for a very long time, both with the Blockwatch Captains Network and the hubs and SNAP groups. I think they're kind of a little bit further along than a lot of the rest of us, and that they've been organized and they do meet and they do have listservs or whatever that they use to kind of send out information to a wide range of people.
You guys want to add anything else? All right.
We're having fun. It's geeky fun. That's what I always say, to do it if it wasn't fun to meet up with the neighbors and talk about different opportunities and creating connections with people and working with the people in the city, both through the grant and Office of Emergency Management. I mean, it's a really enthusiastic, great group of people, I think, that are willing to help.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, just the fact that we participated in a volcano drill on Saturday morning and then had disaster movie night with chocolate lava cakes later that night. It's like you really do have to have fun and laugh at it. I mean, we're talking about some pretty grim stuff, and if you watch the news, even to just realize what happened recently in Oso, where a lot of people are still displaced and people are rallying around them, but if something were to happen here, it could be really difficult. But at this point, we kind of have to laugh about it a little bit as we're thinking about it, because otherwise you can just get too depressed, probably. So, it's good to be with other people who are willing to make that a really fun process.
And what movie did you guys watch?
I think it was called Cascadia: The Hidden Fire, which actually wasn't so much about volcanoes, more about the Cascadia subduction zone and earthquakes that are possible within this region. But I got a couple of things out of the library on Mount St. Helens, and in retrospect, I realized that it was actually the 20th. Wait, no.
Yeah.
It was an anniversary last weekend for the Mount St. Helens eruption. So I'll probably watch that sometime this week and hopefully learn something from it too.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
And thanks for inviting us.
Yes, thanks for letting us talk about our work.
Right. And I'm just going to cover a couple things. SDOT has created a free street permit process that can be easily attained to close neighborhood streets for block parties and other community events. And the link is through the Transportation Department, and I'll have the link on the show notes, which you can find on the website. This is the season for bee swarming, so if you see any bees swarming around, and a swarm is like 10 to 15,000 bees, the Puget Sound beekeepers they have a list of people that will come and collect the bees, and that link is on the show notes. BECU Credit Union is donating $100,000 to nonprofits, and the deadline is June 1st. And the link is going to be on the show notes, or go to their webpage, and you should be able to find it. Check out the city calendar at seattle.gov/calendar, and there's also seattle.gov neighborhoods/calendar. And next week we're going to find out what's the difference between the two, and if the Seattle main calendar actually incorporates the other calendars that are within the City of Seattle government. Next week Our show producer, Cindy Baker, will have Lois Meg from the Department of Neighborhoods. And go to seattleneighborhoodcrier.org to check out past episodes and how to subscribe to the Seattle Neighborhood Crier. And it's a podcast. You'll be able to get it via Android, iPhone, and your computer using a podcast client. The Seattle Neighborhood Crier is live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on YouTube, and there's more information on our homepage. Thank you for listening, and this has been a Media Crier production.